The Council of Ministers has met today, and one topic on the agenda will have been the Sefton bailout, and with the Chief Minister Allan Bell. Now, you've just accepted John Shimmin's resignation, haven't you?
Yes.
And it's not something that you really wanted to do, is that right?
Well, I was first given the resignation from Mr. Shimmin on Tuesday morning, first thing, but it was literally only an hour or so before I was due at the airport to catch a flight to an important meeting in London. So I had very little time on Tuesday morning to consider the implications of such a resignation. And this isn't just another political resignation. The Economic Development Department is the key department at the moment in terms of driving forward the priorities of government. And therefore I needed at least 24 hours just to consider what possible impact there may have been. I have used with my Treasury Minister the last 24 hours to assess views across the economy to see whether there were to be any adverse reaction, because obviously maintaining confidence in the economy is absolutely paramount in all that we do. I have received that opinion. I've had a further meeting with Mr. Shimmin this morning. He is still adamant that he believes the honourable way forward is to, as he put it, fall on his sword, which he committed to when he met the committee, and I have reluctantly accepted that. I'm very sorry to see John go. He's been a very enthusiastic supporter of economic growth, and I think he'll be sadly missed, but I respect the reasons for making this decision, and we have now to move on.
And as you say, I mean, this is a disappointment for you. He was otherwise performing well.
Yes, we are now seeing the benefits of the work we've all put in over the last, number of years, but particularly over the last 3 years. There are very positive signs coming out of the economy across all sectors. The department has recently been recruiting new staff. We've been breaking into new markets, and so the department has actually been performing very well. So I will be obviously very sorry to lose such an enthusiastic minister. But we, as I say, we have to learn the lessons of what have happened and move on. And I'm sure whoever John's replacement is will carry on the good work.
And that's the obvious question, isn't it? Who will replace them? Or are we going to have a reshuffle?
Well, the Department of Economic Development, as I said, is absolutely central to everything government is doing at the moment. Unless we have a strong economy, we cannot generate the revenues government needs to help rebalance the budget or provide the jobs we need for our people. It's not a job, I don't think, for someone coming in straight from outside, a backbencher with no ministerial experience at all. So I suspect, although no decisions have been made at all yet, but I suspect it will be a minister out of the existing pool, and that inevitably will lead to a reshuffle over the next week or two. Now,
just going on to the question of this business of acting outside the law, of acting ultra vires, if Mr. Shimmin had been given bad advice there, will you be investigating the officers who perhaps gave him that advice? Will you be taking this further, in other words?
I think that we need to just recognise, first of all, this is only one single legal opinion which has been given. There are other views which would indicate that they did have the virus. So this is not a decision which has been tested in a court of law, and therefore is not definitive as to what the use of this particular legislation was. So we certainly have to take notice of the legal advice we've been given. We will certainly be reviewing this legislation to make sure it's clear in the future that there can be no further misunderstandings. And obviously the wider implications of the advice, who advised the minister, etc., is for something for the next few weeks. But it certainly will be investigated, because we want to make sure this can't happen again.
And will you be seeking to recover the money? This is £1.7 million. The legal advice is that you can, or you can bring in legislation to validate it retrospectively.
Again, it's too early to say. All these issues are issues to be considered as a result of this decision, and it'll take us a week or two, I think, to finally decide what the best way forward is. We must, before we get caught up with all the political shenanigans which have been going on, we mustn't lose sight of the fact that the Sefton came to us in the first instance, came to the Department of Economic Development in a pretty difficult position financially, and that the decisions which were taken by the Minister, which were ultimately endorsed by the Council of Ministers, were taken in the best interest of the Isle of Man, with the intention of protecting the economy, protecting this particular company, protecting some 300 odd jobs, and in particular protecting a large number of small suppliers who were owed money by the Sefton. This decision was taken not lightly, but with the sole aim of assisting the Isle of Man economy, which is what the department is there for in the first place. So let's not just get sidetracked by some of the nonsense which one or two of our backbenchers have been talking about. This isn't some corruption scandal. It is simply a technical error which was made within the department according to this legal opinion that was received. But in terms of the intent behind that decision, I think it's been very successful. The Sefton Group now appears to be back on firmer ground, that the 300 odd jobs have been protected, and I understand most of the small suppliers have been paid. So the outcome of this whole exercise has been a very positive one for the Isle of Man economy. But we have to make sure that the Council of Ministers obviously abide with the legal interpretation of any legislation that works within, and we have to make sure in the future that any ambiguity, as far as possible, is removed so that the situation doesn't happen again.
So you say then that failing businesses should get state support?
The statement was made at the time that every business is open to consideration for these sort of matters. This was quite an exceptional one. It's a large company. The decision, if you remember, was taken only a matter of weeks before the TT last year. Had the Sefton Group closed, it would have caused major problems for accommodation over the TT period. It would have thrown a lot of people out of work in a very short period of time. And notwithstanding some of the bizarre comments made by the directors and chief executive of the Sefton Group, when they came to see us, to quote their words, they said they were in last chance saloon and that they had to have government support, otherwise it's likely it would have gone under. I think putting the overall picture together, most reasonable people on the Isle of Man would recognise that this was the right thing to do to help the economy at a difficult time. And that was the basis on which the decision was taken by the Minister, by his members and by the Council of Ministers.
Would you accept that public confidence has been damaged by this whole saga?
Well, certainly if the public confidence is directed by the mood of Tynwald, then yes, there has been some concern. But I acknowledge that, and we have to make sure that any damage that's done is repaired quickly. I hope Mr. Shimmin's willingness to fall on his sword, accept that a mistake has been made, is a step forward. But the one outcome I think we've got to be very careful about, of course, is that in future there will be economic opportunities coming our way, which will not necessarily be guaranteed to be successful. And from time to time the department will, if we are going to grow into the future, if we are going to diversify, we'll have to take a risk on some of the decisions that they take. I hope that the outcome of this particular exercise does not in any way inhibit the department's willingness to embrace new ideas and to look for new opportunities to expand the economy further. If that happens, and it has happened in the past, if the departments retrench and simply take the copper-bottomed safety first route forward, then the island is going to have a very difficult time in the future. And the consequence of that is vastly more important to consider than the passing mood of Tynwald.
So you're saying that we need to take risks? We
need to take risks. You know, it's everybody in their daily lives takes risks from the moment you get out of bed. You can't guarantee how your day is going to turn out. Government, and in particular a department of government which is charged with identifying new areas of economic activity, inevitably from time to time is going to face difficult choices. I myself had a difficult choice, for example, when we set up e-gaming. It was a huge risk at that time. It could have rebounded on the island, but it's now 9% of our GDP and employing over 800 people. Sometimes risks work, sometimes they don't. And if you look at the career of every single successful entrepreneur anywhere, but in Britain, all of them will tell you of their failures as well as their successes. And government is no different, and we've got to accept that.
Now, this has knocked public confidence, but there's also the wider community to think about business confidence. The UK, which is overseeing us. So what would you say to that?
It's entirely irrelevant. The decision is taken. It's one minister standing down. It's the department.
But you are going to investigate.
Yes.
You're not just going to stop at one minister standing down.
I think this is it's typical of the Isle of Man, really. We love heads on plates. A mistake has been made. A minister has put his hands up. He's fallen on his sword. We have a department which is set up specifically to help and support the economy. It will continue to do so. The economy is growing. It's very successful. The work that the minister has put in has led to new businesses coming to the Isle of Man. That is going to continue. This isn't a constitutional crisis. This is just a political game which had been played by one or two backbenchers trying to make it into some crisis and allegations of corruption and the like. We've got to keep our feet grounded in this. If the island is going to succeed, if it's going to continue to grow the way it has done, we have got to accept from time to time mistakes will be made, and issues which we back may not necessarily deliver success. That's part of life, and we've got to get used to it.